Why do men start to dislike their wives as they get older? The reason is very practical. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about a reality that makes people deeply uncomfortable. Why is it that so many men, after years of marriage, find themselves frustrated, disillusioned, even resentful toward the very person they once adored? Why does the warmth fade? Why do so many relationships, instead of deepening, deteriorate into cold mechanical routine? Now, before we start throwing around accusations, before we blame this entirely on male selfishness or female indifference, let's acknowledge something crucial. This problem is not a mystery. It's not some unfathomable failure of romance. It's a predictable structural issue that emerges when men and women fail to adapt to the shifting dynamics of time, responsibility, and personal development. Let's break this down practically. One of the greatest threats to admiration in a relationship is predictability. In the beginning, relationships are filled with excitement, discovery, and the thrill of the unknown. Each partner is learning about the other, uncovering new aspects of their personality, interests, and ambitions. This stage of continuous exploration fuels admiration because people naturally respect and value what they are still working to understand. However, as time passes, many couples fall into a pattern of routine. Daily life becomes a series of predictable actions: waking up, handling responsibilities, managing the home, and taking care of obligations. The very structure that provides stability can also create a sense of monotony. The problem arises when partners stop seeing each other as dynamic individuals and instead begin viewing each other as predictable fixtures in their lives. What once inspired curiosity now becomes taken for granted. Psychologically, human beings tend to place less value on things that are always present and unchanging. This applies to careers, material possessions, and relationships alike. A man who once admired his wife for her sharp intellect, passion, or energy may start to overlook those qualities simply because they have become part of the background of his daily life. When something loses its sense of mystery or challenge, it also loses its power to command respect. This is why many men, as they grow older, find themselves less engaged in their marriages. It's not necessarily because their wives have changed for the worse, but because familiarity has made them stop noticing the qualities they once admired. The same is true in reverse. Women often find themselves feeling unheard or unseen, not because their husbands have stopped caring, but because the relationship has stopped evolving. When admiration fades, frustration takes its place. A man who no longer sees his wife as someone who inspires him may unconsciously begin to resent her, interpreting her presence as an obligation rather than a source of excitement. This leads to emotional withdrawal, less meaningful communication, and eventually a loss of connection. The key to preventing this decline is to resist the trap of stagnation. Growth must be a constant in any lasting relationship. Both partners must continue to develop, learn, and challenge themselves, not just for the sake of the marriage, but for their own sense of fulfillment. A relationship that stays alive is one where both people remain individuals, continuously inspiring each other rather than settling into predictable roles. In the early stages of a relationship, growth happens naturally. Both partners are learning about each other, sharing experiences, and evolving together. There is an inherent sense of progress, whether it's through building a future, achieving goals, or deepening emotional connection. This continuous development creates admiration, excitement, and a sense of partnership. But over time, many couples fall into a pattern of stagnation, where neither person is actively growing, and the relationship becomes more about maintaining stability than about evolving together. When personal or intellectual growth slows down, admiration begins to fade. People respect those who challenge themselves, improve, and strive towards something meaningful. In the beginning, a man may admire his wife for her ambition, creativity, or passion for certain interests. But if, over the years, she becomes entirely absorbed in routine responsibilities and stops pursuing personal development, he may start to see her not as the person he once admired, but as someone who has settled into comfort. The same is true for men. If he stops challenging himself, stops setting goals, and simply drifts through life, his wife may begin to lose the deep respect she once had for him. The loss of admiration in a relationship isn't necessarily about one person failing the other. It's about both individuals ceasing to grow in meaningful ways. When two people stop striving to be better versions of themselves, they also stop inspiring each other. Instead of being a dynamic partnership where both individuals elevate one another, the relationship becomes a static arrangement where each person simply fulfills a role. This stagnation breeds frustration, and frustration turns into quiet resentment. Many couples assume that love is enough to sustain a relationship indefinitely, but love without growth leads to boredom and detachment. A couple that stops learning, exploring, and challenging each other becomes trapped in an unchanging cycle. Over time, small frustrations build up, conversations become repetitive, and the excitement of being together diminishes. Without the energy that comes from mutual progress, the relationship starts to feel more like an obligation than a source of fulfillment. To maintain admiration, both partners need to remain engaged in their personal development. Whether it's through pursuing passions, setting new goals, or simply maintaining a sense of curiosity about life, continuous growth is essential. A thriving relationship isn't just about staying together, it's about evolving together in a way that keeps admiration alive and prevents the slow erosion of respect and excitement. As a marriage progresses, responsibilities naturally increase. Men and women take on different roles, often shaped by societal expectations, financial pressures, and family dynamics. In the beginning, both partners feel a sense of shared purpose, working together to build a life. But over time, these roles can become unbalanced, leading to feelings of resentment and frustration. Men often find themselves burdened by the responsibility of being the provider. Whether or not both partners contribute financially, many men feel a deep internal pressure to ensure stability and security. As careers become more demanding and financial pressures grow, they may start to feel trapped in a cycle where their primary identity is defined by work and responsibility rather than personal fulfillment. They sacrifice personal interests, passions, and sometimes even their health to meet expectations. In their minds, they are doing everything necessary to provide for the family, but they may feel unappreciated when their efforts are taken for granted or go unnoticed. Women, on the other hand, often carry the emotional and domestic burdens of the relationship. Many devote themselves to managing the home, raising children, and handling the countless small tasks that keep a household running smoothly. Even if they work outside the home, they frequently take on the majority of the emotional labor. Remembering birthdays, planning events, maintaining social connections, and ensuring the well-being of everyone around them. Over time, this can lead to feelings of exhaustion and invisibility as their contributions are expected rather than valued. When both partners are overwhelmed by their responsibilities but fail to acknowledge or appreciate each other's struggles, resentment begins to build. The husband may feel like he is constantly working with little gratitude, while the wife may feel like she is constantly giving without being truly seen. This imbalance creates a divide where each partner feels unrecognized, leading to emotional distance. Over time, what was once a relationship of shared effort becomes a contract of unspoken expectations. The man resents his wife for not understanding the weight of his sacrifices, and the woman resents her husband for failing to see beyond her role as a caregiver. Neither person is intentionally neglecting the other, but their respective burdens prevent them from fully appreciating each other's struggles. To prevent this breakdown, both partners must actively acknowledge and express gratitude for each other's contributions. When both feel seen and valued, the dynamic shifts from resentment to mutual respect. Relationships thrive when both individuals feel appreciated not just for what they do, but for who they are beyond their responsibilities. As time passes in a marriage, the way partners see each other gradually shifts. In the beginning, they relate to one another as individuals. With unique personalities, dreams, and ambitions, they fall in love with the person, not just their role in the relationship. However, as responsibilities pile up and daily life becomes more structured, couples begin to interact primarily through their assigned roles rather than as two evolving individuals. The husband becomes the provider, the wife becomes the caregiver, and the dynamic shifts from a relationship to a structured system where each person is expected to fulfill certain obligations. This transition happens subtly. At first, both partners are deeply engaged with each other's thoughts, ideas, and personal growth. Conversations are rich, and there's a genuine curiosity about each other's perspectives. But over time, the dialogue becomes centered around logistics, paying bills, managing schedules, handling household chores, and taking care of children. The deeper personal connection gets buried under the weight of responsibilities. When a husband starts seeing his wife primarily as the caretaker of the home or the mother of his children, rather than as the passionate, intelligent woman he once admired, his perception of her shifts. She is no longer an individual in his eyes, but someone fulfilling a necessary function in their shared life. Similarly, when a wife starts seeing her husband only as the financial provider or the man who fixes problems, she begins to interact with him based on what he does rather than who he is. This shift is not intentional, but it erodes the foundation of admiration and emotional closeness. As a result, both partners begin to feel unseen. The wife may feel that no one values her beyond her caregiving role, and the husband may feel that his worth is measured only by his ability to provide. They stop looking at each other with fresh eyes, and instead they fall into predictable patterns where appreciation is replaced by expectation. When admiration fades, frustration sets in, and small annoyances grow into deeper dissatisfaction. To counter this, couples must make a conscious effort to see each other as evolving individuals, not just as partners fulfilling roles. This means continuing to engage in meaningful conversations, supporting each other's personal growth, and maintaining curiosity about each other's evolving thoughts and aspirations. A relationship thrives when both partners remain interested in who the other is becoming, rather than just what they contribute to the household structure. Admiration and passion in a relationship are not things that simply exist on their own. They must be cultivated and maintained through consistent effort. Many people enter marriage believing that love will naturally sustain itself, but over time they realize that without intentional work, feelings of admiration and excitement start to fade. The reality is that long-term relationships require continuous investment, not just in the partnership, but in personal growth as well. Early in a relationship, both partners put effort into impressing and attracting each other. They take care of their appearance, engage in deep conversations, share new experiences, and genuinely try to be the best version of themselves. But as time goes on, many couples fall into the trap of complacency. They stop putting in the same level of effort, not out of neglect, but because they assume that once love is established, it will sustain itself. This assumption is one of the most common reasons why admiration fades. A man who once saw his wife as an inspiring and captivating person may begin to see her as merely part of his routine if she stops evolving and growing. The same applies in reverse. A woman who once admired her husband's drive and ambition may start to feel disappointed if he becomes stagnant and loses his sense of purpose. When both partners stop striving to be the best version of themselves, they also stop being a source of inspiration for each other. Over time, this leads to a slow erosion of excitement and deep connection. Another critical mistake is prioritizing external responsibilities over the relationship itself. Careers, children, financial pressures, and daily obligations take precedence, and couples begin to invest less time and energy into nurturing their bond. Date nights, meaningful conversations, and shared activities become rare, replaced by a predictable cycle of responsibilities. When admiration and excitement are not actively maintained, resentment can take their place. The key to keeping a relationship alive is to never stop growing as individuals and as partners. This means continuously challenging oneself, setting new goals, and remaining engaged in self-improvement. It also means making a conscious effort to keep the relationship fresh, surprising each other, sharing new experiences, and maintaining a sense of curiosity. Love and admiration are not static, they thrive when both partners continue to evolve and inspire one another. A relationship that stops growing inevitably starts declining, but one that remains dynamic continues to be a source of passion and fulfillment. The key to a lasting and fulfilling relationship is continuous growth and mutual inspiration. Many couples assume that once love is established, it will remain strong without much effort. However, admiration and respect are not static. They require both partners to evolve as individuals and to support each other's personal journeys. The moment a relationship stops growing, it starts deteriorating. The strongest relationships are not those where two people remain the same, but where they challenge and inspire each other to become better versions of themselves. A common mistake couples make is thinking that their connection will naturally sustain itself over time. In reality, admiration is built through action. When one partner sees the other actively striving for self-improvement, whether through learning new skills, pursuing passions, or maintaining physical and mental well-being, it fosters a sense of respect and appreciation. A man who continues to push himself, set goals, and seek personal growth will naturally be more admired by his wife, just as a woman who remains engaged with her own aspirations and self-development will continue to inspire her husband. The problem arises when both partners fall into complacency. When personal ambitions fade, conversations become repetitive, and curiosity about life diminishes, the relationship loses its sense of energy. A marriage that lacks inspiration turns into a routine where both partners go through the motions rather than actively investing in each other. Over time, they stop looking at each other with admiration and instead see only familiarity, which often leads to frustration and emotional distance. Mutual inspiration is not about competition. It's about encouragement and shared growth. A healthy relationship is one where both partners support each other's ambitions and push one another to reach higher standards. When one person is struggling, the other provides motivation. When one achieves something meaningful, the other celebrates it wholeheartedly. This dynamic keeps admiration alive because it ensures that both partners remain engaged and invested in each other's personal evolution. Ultimately, a relationship thrives when both individuals continue to be people worth admiring. Love alone is not enough. Respect, growth, and shared ambition are what sustain long-term connection. The best way to keep a marriage strong is not to cling to the past, but to continually work toward a future where both partners are excited about the people they are becoming. A marriage that fosters growth remains fulfilling, while one that stagnates will inevitably lead to discontent. The solution to a failing relationship is not to look backward, but to build forward, with both partners choosing to become better every day.